We are beginning our third week of a season of love. And some of us may be thinking, well, we're doing a lot of talking about being loved. When are we going to get to the part where we talk about becoming better lovers, becoming better lovers of the world and of others? When are we going to start repairing those divides? When are we going to get going and doing with the loving? So the answer is, of course, that we have begun, but to really become the lovers that are needed in this time, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. We got to go back to the beginning of where things might have started to go wrong. First, let's remind ourselves what we're doing here in this season of love. And this is from the poem by Pastor Steve, in which he says, "In troubled times, it takes great concentration to align ourselves with grace instead of force, with love instead of fear. We begin by allowing ourselves to be loved along with all the rest of creation. And then we fall into that love and let that love flow through us into the world. It is a 3-step process, and in that exact order. We first allow ourselves to be loved. Then we fall into love. And then love flows from us naturally into the world. But we haven't been that good at allowing ourselves to be loved. So that's why we spend some time here at the beginning of our season of love, really focusing on that. So we, in order to be the lovers that are needed in the world and to be the lovers that we actually really want to be, I think that's something that's really important too. We have to clear any of the obstacles that obstruct the flow of love. So the work that we're doing in this practice and what I invite all of us to be practicing daily is to clear those obstacles within ourselves. And then being able to hold love in our own being, to let the love in, hold it, and then allow it to naturally flow out from us again. So our channels, our love channels, have to be open. And none of us here, none of us in this room, Zoom room with me, none of us who may be listening to this recording, none of us have perfectly clear channels. And so we have to practice that clearing. So the reason we are not completely wide open channels of love is actually kind of simple. The reason is we are adult humans. And it's not being human that keeps us from having completely clear channels to love. It is the fact that we are adult humans. So we were all made for love. We are all born perfectly equipped to love. Nobody in this room or listening to this recording needed to learn how to love. So what are we doing here then? Why do we have trouble with this? Why do we see a problem with this in the world around us? So that's also an easy question. We forgot. So there's a story that I've heard, Tara Brach, who is a Dharma teacher and Buddhist meditation instructor. I've heard her tell it multiple times on her podcast. And it's this story that a 4-year-old says to her mother, who's an art teacher, "What do you do every day when you go to work?" And her mother said, "I teach people how to draw and paint." And her daughter looked at her, shocked and incredulous, and said, "You mean they forgot?" And it's the same for us. We knew everything about loving and being loved, and we did not have to read a psychology book. We did not have to read a self-help book. We didn't have to practice. We knew how to do it, but we forgot. So let's talk about kids. Little kids. Among my top favorite things in the whole world are babies and little kids, puppies, and snow. And don't even get me started on what happens when you put all of those three things together. And I'll leave you wondering about what my other top 2 and my top 5 are. Don't get distracted though. So let's talk about kids. Traits we associate with very young children. Think about this. Traits we associate with very young children. Kids, they feel what they're feeling, and they generally let you know what they're feeling. These are very young children. They feel what they feel, and they generally let you know what they feel. They can turn on a dime between anguish to joy, back to anguish, back to joy. Every day is new and exciting. Every moment, something new, something interesting, something to explore. So curiosity, wonder. They're also actually pretty gentle. Not always, but they tend to be gentle, hopeful. And yes, they're very present. And here's something that you probably don't notice about kids until we stop and think about it, is that they don't seem to worry about being worthy of love. They seem to assume that they should be and will be loved. These are very young children. We don't know that things happen in life, the changes that, but in the beginning, they automatically know that they are worthy of love. There's a reason for that. It's because very young children don't think in terms of worth. Worth does not exist to them yet. There's no measurement. There's no whether I did something to be loved or not. It's just love. Their love flows out. Love for them flows in. So, what in the world is different about very young children and us today? The people that are listening, the people that are sitting in this room. What is the difference? And the very short answer is, well, we grew up. And another way to say that is that very young children do not yet know how the world works. And we call this innocence. And all those things we named about children, that all has something to do with that innocence that we feel, the reason we love to be around them. We can also call what we experience with kids as pre-ego. They have not yet formed the ego. We'll talk a lot more in the future weeks about ego. Some of you know a thing or two about it. But I used the phrase, they don't know how the world works. Well, the way the world works doesn't come about because of some universal law. Over millennia, humans have all created these laws about how the world works, how we work, how we interact with one another. And we did all of that through the interaction of our egos. And it is the ego and those interactions of the egos that allowed us to evolve, to create all the human created wonders, including the wonder of this Zoom room, the wonder of this recording. It really is unbelievable what humans have been capable of. And it also has created all the disasters, all the problems that we see around us. So we don't want to villainize the ego. We just want to recognize that it is at play here. And it's the ego that obstructs the channels of love. So the practice that we do here, the practice of surrendered presence, even before we were in this season of love, we've been practicing surrendered presence for years now. It's all about clearing those channels of love. That's how the practice itself functions, actually. It's got 4 different stages, and in the first stage, it reminds us to be here in the moment, feeling ourselves, knowing ourselves, and being right here and now rather than in the future, worrying and planning, or in the past, being sad or regretful or bitter. It reminds us to feel what we are feeling in that first stage. And in the second stage, it reminds us that we are held, that we are not just holding ourselves, and that we are not completely in control on this earth, that something else is holding us and taking care of us. And we know that children have to be held. They've shown that they do not develop physically, emotionally, intellectually. If children are not held, they can be fed, they can be clothed. If they are not held and kept close to a human person and felt love, they won't develop. So the practice also teaches us in our third stage to let everything in, and we let it flow in. We also let it flow back out again. We don't have to hold on to anything. We can let things affect us. And again, think about children, anguish to joy, to anguish to joy. It's because it flows in. They don't hang on to it. It flows back out again. And we can relearn that practice as well to help keep our channels of love clear. And then in our final stage, we practice resting. We practice simple being in love. So think about all that I just said right there, and the way children know how to do every single one of those things. So then in many ways, they can be our teachers. But now that we are grown-ups, now that we know how the world works, we need to find our way back to innocence, to those places in our that is complete, the places in ourself, our whole being that is open, And I promise you that that place of innocence is still there. So let's practice together. So we began our practice reminding ourselves that we gather in love. That love is here, just like the air surrounding us. That this air is not created by any one person, any one being, that love just is. And that we can allow this love to affect us, to enter us, and to flow back out again. So we began our practice by simply noticing what we're experiencing now. It simply means that when we notice an experience, whether that's something we hear, something we might feel, something we might think, we simply notice it and name it silently to ourselves. And then notice the next experience. And then we bring our attention to our body. We begin with the body. And we allow ourselves to experience all parts of our physical being. And in this particular practice of love, we allow love to flow in to all parts of our being. So imagining love flowing into your feet, into your lower legs, upper legs, and your hips. Imagining and experiencing love flowing into your belly, and all the organs of the belly. Imagining love flowing in and filling your chest, and your beating heart. Allowing love to flow into your shoulders, your upper arms, your lower arms, and your hands. Noticing love filling all of your back, spine, ribs, scapula. And then including the scalp, and letting love rest on your face. And then imagining love filling your whole physical being. Being grounded in your body, not losing track of what your body feels like. Include in your experience your inner landscape, beginning with your heart. This is our feeling center. Wherever you feel that in your body, imagining that love is filling your heart. And noticing how your heart responds. And imagining that love fills your spirit. I like to think of my spirit as my aliveness, the part of me that feels like flow and energy, vibration. What happens as love interacts with that part of you? And then noticing your mind and letting love fill your mind. And then experiencing yourself as one whole being, body, heart, spirit, mind, all filled with love. And then recognizing that you are a part of a world where everything is exactly like that, every being filled with love. No one, nothing separated from love. Now feeling the way the earth is drawing you into itself. That you're being acted upon by the force of gravity, which holds you here. Draws you into the earth. And really see if you can sense that you are being held. Once you notice that this is true, you are being held. See if you can allow the earth to hold you even deeper. Give yourself over to the holding. That giving ourselves over to the holding is actually relaxing. We begin to let go. This is true of gravity. This is true of love. So remaining in your full being, not losing track of yourself, allowing yourself to be held, and just noticing your breath, and particularly how naturally and easily air flows into your body and back out again. How it is the natural cycle of all things to receive and let go. So this is the main thing that we have forgotten. We have forgotten how to let go, how to surrender. So our body is our teacher. We feel what it feels like to let go of the breath. We follow the breath as the teacher and let our hearts go, let our spirits go, let our mind go. And coming to rest in a space of simple being in love. See if in this space you can begin again to feel the innocence, which just means all the ego stories fall away. You remember your truest and deepest self. And it knows exactly how to love. Thank you all so much for practicing with me and supporting my own practice. I love you all.